My name is Bruce Starr. Some of you know me. I've been in and around the South Florida area for over 22 years. I first got down here in the 90s and had a show on WNN radio called Luvcoach with Bruce Starr. And I've just always been interested in relationships. Most of the time because they frustrated the heck out of me. And I, like most people now, were very confused about it, really didn't understand what made for a healthy, long-lasting relationship. And so around 1975, I started, which is now an over 35-year self-study on several different philosophies on life, mostly to teach myself how to be able to sustain a relationship that I wanted to be in. And I was talking to my friend here that I had a great time, lived in Boston, had a great time. I was never totally unhappy with relationships, but I just didn't understand them. I didn't understand how people got married. Were they happy? Even if they were married, were they happy? Or why were people arguing all the time? And I was just kind of naive about the whole thing. And so I started this study to really get it teach myself. And about 15 years after I started, I learned about America Online way back in 1993. And there was just a couple of 100,000 people on at that time. And I was told that if I would open up a room, I said, what do you mean open up a room? I mean, I didn't have any concept what America Online was all about. And he said to me, well, it's like walking down the hallway of a high school. And on the left is a biology class, and on the right is a history class. You could open up a room, call it whatever you like, and if people are interested in talking about relationships, they'll come in. So I opened up a room called Relationship Coaching, all one word. And it was kind of a very, very interesting thing. I did it to help anyone that wanted to come in and ask a question about relationships. And 10 years later, by 2003, I had over 6,000 intimate, detailed conversations with people from all around the world. And they shared with me their deepest, darkest problems and frustrations. And along the way, I was able to help a lot of people with their relationships. But what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is what I learned from them. Now, don't get upset with the messenger. I'm not here to be better or smarter than anyone about relationships. It's not about that. What I'm really here to do is to share with you the information that I learned during that 10-year period and also a lot of other years. And so what I learned from people like you who came into this room was that there were some very major problems in people's relationships. And it started way back when we got our hearts broken, perhaps for the very first time. People shared with me stories about how they were deeply shattered, especially if someone broke up with them. Now, men and women, as you know, many times experience relationships in different ways. But I'm here to tell you, ladies, and the men will not admit this, so I'm going to tell you anyway, that if men got their hearts broken when they were 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, if a woman broke up with them and they were really in love, there's a very good chance that they never recovered. What do you think about that? Think that's possible?
Yes.
Now it's possible. I had someone raise their hand. I spoke up in Orlando about a month or two ago, and I had a man raise his hand who said to me, I've been in love, and my heart's never been broken, and all that stuff that you're teaching, I don't believe. I said, that's pretty good that someone who has been in love, is not having a tough time with it. Now you ladies had your hearts broken also. And if the man came and broke your heart, most likely we started a year or two younger, 15, 16, 17, 18. If the man came and broke your heart, you suffered like everybody else, but you had an advantage over the men. Any idea what that is? What? Friends. You had your ladies, you had your friends to talk about, and hopefully you were able to support each other, especially way back in the beginning. They said, give love a chance again. Don't give up on love, give it a chance again. Now, Frank, who goes to work out in the gym, now Frank is not going to sit down next to his buddy Mario and say, Mario, I'm really, my heart is broken and I'm really feeling vulnerable about it's just not going to happen, right? Big old Mario or Frank is not going to share their deepest, darkest vulnerabilities with each other. So it's very, very possible that the man has never been able to heal his broken heart. So again, what I'm sharing with you now is what I learned from these 6,000 conversations. What I also learned was that we're also a very social generation. Very few people would just stay home and stop dating and stop going out. So what many people did, they tried to figure out a way to remain social, but at the same time, they felt very awkward or vulnerable to attempt to fall in love again. Do you kind of agree with that? That kind of people went in after relationships trying to protect their hearts. And especially if you tried again and it didn't work again, you're just about ready to tear it up and just, pack it in. But again, some people just didn't work at all. They didn't date at all, and they just concentrated on work. But others wanted to remain social. And what did we do to substitute for approaching relationships with our hearts closed and protected? Instead of feeling about our relationships, instead of leading with our heart, instead of looking for someone that they could feel love for, what many people did, and I'm one of them, and maybe everybody in this room can relate to this. We started leading with our heads. We started thinking about relationships. We started thinking about how we can get relationships to work without opening up our hearts and keeping our hearts safely tucked away. So, me and a lot of other people way back when would choose people who we could have some fun with. We chose people who we could looked attractive to us and maybe satisfy some of our needs, sexual needs. Maybe some people just went with people who they could be friends with. And so we approached relationships with our heads. Now here's the problem. As you know, and we talked about this already and you can relate to, when your heart is like your spirit, your heart doesn't change like the wind. When you fall in love that first time, it may take you years and years and years to either get over it or to bring down the emotions and bring down the feelings enough to allow someone else into your life. So what we did was, this current generation calls it hooking up. What does hooking up mean? Just having sex, Another big saying is, what is it? Friends with benefits. Okay? Now, those are all nice substitutions for the real thing. And it just takes 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of those before you start saying, you hold up your hands and say, enough. I want more than that. See, we all deep inside, whether we're able to admit it or not, and I have to watch this guy with the glasses because he doesn't look like he wants to admit anything to me. But whether we want to admit it or not, is that we all want to have love in our hearts. But some of us have gotten really good at being in denial and thinking, well, we don't really need it. The other thing that happened, and probably a lot of you can relate to this also, is that when you start approaching relationships intellectually, you'll notice that your mind changes rather easily. You all agree with that? Your mind can change rather easily. So, what I found out from all these people that I spoke to was that people needed to find substitutes for excitement, hooking up, friends with benefits, and maybe some of those same people, but also what they needed was challenges. They needed, if they were going to go and approach relationships with their intellect or their mind, they needed their mind stimulated. So they were only attracted to people who were challenges. Now, what does that basically mean? What does it mean when you're attracted to someone who is a challenge? Let's say I'm a guy and I want to hear someone. I'm a guy and I think someone's pretty kind of cute. And what makes her a challenge? Anybody want to? I have the answer, but I'm wondering if anybody else has an idea. What makes her a challenge? If she's not interested. If she's not all that interested, all of a sudden, the guy is interested in her. Same thing, whatever I say about women, it's also the same thing about men. And men and women have never been more similar in masculine nature than they are now. And men and women have never been more similar if they're typically feminine in nature. And I'm not saying gay, I'm not saying effeminate, I'm saying masculine energy is a typical, stereotypically a male energy where you're aggressive and you're the one that's making the moves, and the feminine is the one who is more receptive. One is not any weaker or stronger than the other. It's just that's the way it was for 5,000 years before basically the last 20 years, when the roles have gotten kind of mixed up. Now, I lived out in a place called Los Angeles, on and off for about